All right, joining me now is Kim Strassel, Wall Street Journal columnist, Fox News contributor, and author of the Biden Malaise. So, Kim, good to see you. Thanks for joining me. So, what political impact do you think this special counsel appointment is going to have on the 2024 race?
Yeah. Hi, Sean. So, I think actually Mike Pence is wrong there. I think that the biggest political impact this is going to have is to help Joe Biden. And here's why. I mean, we may have David Weiss file pretty quickly some of these tax and gun charges because they seem to be ready to go. But these were the things that we knew that he was that were the subject of this plea deal anyway, we know about. The important stuff is the ongoing investigation. The important stuff is what about those shell companies? Was Joe Biden involved? Is Hunter in violation of the Foreign Agent Registration Act? That stuff is about to go into a black hole because the special counsel is going to say it's ongoing. And not only is he not going to talk about it until after the end of next year's election, but he's going to take that special counsel status and use it as an argument to deny Republicans any further documents, any further witnesses, and his own testimony in front of Congress. So I think this is problematic for Republicans and for Americans who want to know the truth about Hunter Biden.
So do you think David Weiss is going to slow walk this investigation? We'll have no answers, no charges, no indictment until sometime, if at all, after the 2024 race? Is that your point?
Well, I guess we could get some tax indictments, maybe a gun indictment, because, listen, he's also coming up against statute of limitations in some of these cases. And we know from the IRS whistleblowers that there was a very comprehensive charging document which recommended felonies. That team had been ready to go with that until, according to whistleblowers, Mr. Weiss was blocked by Biden appointees from filing those charges in certain jurisdictions. He may go ahead with that, so we might have the drama of that in a courtroom. But again, the stuff that really matters, yeah, that's headed into a black box, and I don't think anyone's going to hear anything more about it until people have gone to the polls.
I think David Weiss has shown his loyalty to the Biden family, and that's why this appointment was made. I'm not very hopeful that we're going to get to the truth through the Department of Justice leading the FBI. I think it's going to be the House Republicans through their investigation that's going to shed light on what actually happened with the Biden corruption. But I want to turn back to Iowa because, Kim, you write in the Wall Street Journal that we need free Ron DeSantis, saying what he needs at the Republican primary debate isn't a reset, but a return to his winning message of September of 2022. What do you mean by that, Kim? What are you talking about?
Well, Sean, if you go back and you listen to Ron DeSantis' speeches from just a year ago when he was stumping and getting ready for re-election, that was a Ron DeSantis that sounded on the top of his game, right? He was giving speeches very ably connecting policy in Florida to its economic revival, to better test scores in schools, to its great public safety record. He was explaining why he'd gone after Disney. He was explaining why he'd passed that Parental Control Act. And he really looked like a guy who was in tune with average voters, really teleporting, channeling their concerns. And that's why he won that massive reelection. For some unknown reason, and I do not understand whether it's bad advice or polling or focus groups, he's decided to adopt Trump-style grievance politics, where it's all about us versus them. He gave that economic address, and it was all, the elites and the special interests are coming to get you. I mean, that's very different from the Ron DeSantis who was explaining the economic growth benefits everybody, which is an optimistic, positive message. So my argument is not that he needs to reset. He needs to go back to what he was doing a year ago.
A lot of these political consultants come in and they get in your head and they give you advice and polling what is going to work on the stump, and they don't know what they're talking about. I think candidates have to be real. Ron DeSantis, I think you're right, needs to go back to the conversation and the policies that worked for him in Florida that made so many people, even Democrats, love him as a governor, to say this actually worked. He did the right thing in his states. If he could bring that policy to the U.S. and correct our economic situation today, they might actually consider him, but he's not. I think you're right. He's taking the Donald Trump track, and it's not working for him.
Yeah, I mean, you've had experience in that world. You know how those consultants can make people go off track. He's going to be his best guide. He needs to to get rid of these folks and remember what he's doing. Look, Iowa voters would love to hear about somebody who had that record of governance, who can really point to competence in office. They'd love to see someone who had a vision for the future, and he's got the ability to translate what he did in Florida into a broader vision.
Yes.
He's just got to talk more. So instead of the kind of ranting about, global forces and coming after average people and how he's going to stop it, explain your vision. Look, some of this is going to get a little bit of a debut, I think, an opportunity for people to really tune in at that debate. But that would be the place for him to remember who he was and really roll it back out again.
And especially if Donald Trump's not there. It's going to be a stage where they all can present their ideas and talk about what they want to talk about as opposed to the former president. But I want to get your take on this because a recent poll shows Ron DeSantis growing increasingly unpopular with female voters. Likely female GOP primary voters are favoring Donald Trump 52% to 11% for the former Florida governor. I guess this is kind of somewhat baffling to me. I'm surprised, but what do you make of this poll as a woman? I'm a man. I'll go. What's happening here with women going to Trump over DeSantis?
Look, I honestly think, Sean, I've been saying this for a while. I honestly think that a lot of the numbers that you are seeing for Donald Trump, maybe up to half of them, and the polls suggest that this is true, is simply his name recognition and because he's essentially the incumbent. People have not really tuned in yet. We had a recent poll from the New York Times, Siena, in Iowa, showing that while he had like 47% of support, half of those people said that they were actively evaluating other candidates or they were open to changing their vote. That to me suggests that people aren't tuned in. That's why that debate is really going to matter. In terms of women in particular, again, I think some of those that are saying Trump, it's because they know his name. But I think those that have actually been evaluating DeSantis don't necessarily like the new angry DeSantis that they see. These are the folks that really, like suburban women in particular, they want to hear a message of positivity and people talking about the economic, kitchen table issues that matter most to them. Not maybe so much of all this woke stuff. It does resonate as well, too. But people have got other concerns on their minds, too, other than Disney.
I would just note that Ron DeSantis has not gone up in the polls since people have heard his message. He's actually gone down. And Donald Trump has expanded his lead. I think there's a lot of anger at how Donald Trump has been treated. And by the way, they look back to the 4 years of his presidency, and they loved his economy. It went really well for them. And I think that's the differential here. But again, there's a lot of time before the Iowa caucus. We're going to see how it develops. Kim Strassel, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, and speaking of 2024, Fox News will be hosting the first GOP primary debate on Wednesday, August 24th at 9 p.m. Eastern. Plus, Fox Business will be hosting the second Republican primary debate at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Simi, California. That's on Friday, September 27th. Mark your calendars. You don't want to miss either of these debates. They're going to be awesome. You don't want to miss them.